Imagine you're standing in a world with no restaurants, no grocery stores, no cooking videos, no food bloggers arguing about the best burger. No one has ever told you what food is supposed to look like. You don't even know what a burger is. Now imagine you're a prehistoric human walking across a vast landscape millions of years ago. You see grass, you see trees, you see insects, and nearby lies the body of a dead animal. A strange smell hangs in the air. The question is simple. Would you eat it? Today, eating meat seems completely normal. Millions of people eat it every day without giving it a second thought. But at some point in human history, somebody had to be first. Some early ancestor had to look at an animal and think, maybe that's food. But why? How did that idea even appear? Did ancient humans hunt from the beginning? Did they accidentally discover meat? Were they desperate? Or were they simply curious? And perhaps the strangest question of all, what was it like to take that very first bite? Let's travel back millions of years and explore one of the most important dietary decisions ever made, the moment our ancestors began eating meat. A world before meat. Before we answer how humans started eating meat, we first need to understand the world they lived in. Our ancient ancestors were not powerful hunters. They weren't the kings of nature. In fact, they were often closer to the bottom of the food chain than the top. Imagine being surrounded by giant cats, enormous crocodiles, hyenas, snakes, and predators that could outrun, outfight, and outbite you. Not exactly an ideal neighborhood. Early humans had no metal weapons. No bows. No traps. No fire for cooking. No protective shelters. No supermarket waiting around the corner when dinner plans failed. Every meal required effort. Every day was a survival challenge. Most of their food probably came from plants, fruits, leaves, roots, seeds, nuts. Whatever could be safely gathered without becoming somebody else's lunch. For countless generations, this lifestyle worked. But nature rarely stays predictable. Seasons changed. Rainfall shifted. Forests shrank. Grasslands expanded. Some food sources became harder to find. And when food becomes scarce, survival encourages creativity, the universal survival rule. There is one rule that applies to almost every animal on Earth. If food becomes difficult to find, flexibility becomes valuable. Think about modern animals. Bears eat berries. But they also eat fish. Foxes hunt rabbits. But they'll happily steal leftovers. Even your pet dog would probably eat an expensive steak, a piece of bread, or something suspiciously found under the couch. Nature rewards opportunists. And humans became masters of opportunity. Our ancestors weren't locked into a single food source. They experimented. They explored. They observed. They learned. This flexibility may have opened the door to one of humanity's biggest dietary discoveries. Meat. The first opportunity. Now let's imagine a realistic scene. A group of early humans wanders across an African savanna. The sun is hot. Food is limited. Then they notice something unusual. A dead animal. Perhaps a zebra. Perhaps an antelope. Perhaps something killed recently by a lion. The predators are gone. The carcass remains. At first, nobody rushes forward. After all, dead animals can be dangerous. Disease exists. Predators might return. The smell is unpleasant. Yet hunger has a powerful influence. Someone approaches carefully. Maybe they poke it with a stick. Maybe they inspect it. Maybe they notice other animals eating it. Vultures. Jackals. Hyenas. Creatures are feeding and surviving. And then curiosity appears. Humans are naturally curious. Even today, people ask questions like, Can I microwave this? Can I jump from here? What happens if I press this button? Curiosity has always been one of our defining traits. Eventually, someone may have decided to take a small bite. A tiny experiment. A risky test. And surprisingly, it provided energy. A lot of energy. Why meat was different. Plants can be nutritious. But meat offers something special. It contains concentrated calories, protein, fat, important nutrients. In environments where food was unpredictable, this was extremely valuable. Imagine spending hours gathering berries. Now imagine finding a large animal carcass capable of feeding multiple individuals. From a survival perspective, that's difficult to ignore. Once humans discovered that meat could be eaten safely under certain conditions, it became another option in their growing menu. Not necessarily the main food source at first. Just another useful resource. But an important one. They probably didn't start as hunters. One common misconception is that humans immediately became expert hunters. The evidence suggests reality was probably far messier. Early humans likely began as scavengers before becoming skilled hunters. Instead of killing animals themselves, they may have taken advantage of leftovers. Imagine arriving after a lion finished eating. The predator leaves. Bones remain. Bits of meat remain. Marrow remains inside bones. For a clever primate holding a sharp stone, that's an opportunity. Stone tools allowed early humans to cut meat more efficiently. They could scrape flesh, break bones, access nutritious marrow hidden inside. This was food other animals couldn't always reach. Suddenly, intelligence became a survival advantage. Instead of stronger teeth or sharper claws, humans used tools. And tools changed everything. The power of observation. Humans learn by watching. Even today, children copy adults constantly. Ancient humans likely learned in similar ways. If one individual discovered a useful food source, others noticed. Knowledge spread. Families learned. Groups adapted. Over generations, eating meat may have transformed from an unusual experiment into a normal behavior. Imagine the first conversation. Of course, language didn't exist as we know it. But the prehistoric equivalent might have looked something like this. One human points toward a carcass. Another human looks nervous. The first human eats. Nothing bad happens. The second human slowly joins. Soon everyone is eating. And just like that, a new tradition begins. No cookbook required. The brain connection. Here's where things become especially fascinating. Many scientists believe increased access to energy-rich foods, including meat, may have supported the evolution of larger human brains. Brains are expensive organs. They consume enormous amounts of energy. A bigger brain requires more fuel. Meat provided a dense source of calories and nutrients that could help meet those demands. Now, this doesn't mean meat alone created human intelligence. Evolution is far more complicated than that. But improved nutrition may have contributed to changes that unfolded over millions of years. Better nutrition. Better survival. More successful offspring. Gradual evolutionary advantages. Tiny changes accumulating across enormous stretches of time. The result? Eventually, creatures capable of building cities, launching satellites, and arguing online about pineapple pizza. Evolution takes some unexpected turns. The first hunt. At some point, scavenging wasn't enough. Humans began actively hunting. Not because they were stronger than predators. Because they were smarter. Humans excelled at cooperation. Communication. Planning. Persistence. A lion can sprint faster. A cheetah can run much faster. But humans possess extraordinary endurance. Working together, groups could track animals over long distances. They could coordinate attacks. They could share information. Gradually, hunting became more effective. And with better tools came better results. Sharpened stones. Wooden spears. Eventually, increasingly sophisticated weapons. The relationship between humans and meat continued evolving. The fire revolution. Then came another major breakthrough. Fire. Before cooking, eating raw meat was difficult. Chewing required effort. Digestion demanded energy. Some risks remained. Cooking changed the equation completely. Food became softer, safer, easier to digest. Nutrients became more accessible. Meals required less chewing. More calories became available. Imagine tasting cooked meat after a lifetime of eating everything raw. That discovery must have felt revolutionary. The prehistoric equivalent of upgrading from a bicycle to a sports car. Suddenly, dinner became significantly more enjoyable. A relatable human moment. Let's pause for a second. Because despite the millions of years separating us from those ancestors, some things haven't changed. Humans still experiment with food. We still copy what others eat. We still discover new flavors. Think about the first person who tried coffee, or cheese, or spicy peppers, or fermented foods that honestly look slightly suspicious. Someone always has to be first. Someone takes the risk. Everyone else benefits from the discovery. Our ancient ancestors were doing exactly the same thing. The scale was different. The stakes were much higher. But the curiosity was remarkably familiar. The first hunt. At some point, scavenging wasn't enough. Humans began actively hunting. Not because they were stronger than predators. Because they were smarter. Humans excelled at cooperation, communication, planning, persistence. A lion can sprint faster. A cheetah can run much faster. But humans possess extraordinary endurance. Working together, groups could track animals over long distances. They could coordinate attacks. They could share information. Gradually, hunting became more effective. And with better tools came better results. Sharpened stones. Wooden spears. Eventually, increasingly sophisticated weapons. The relationship between humans and meat continued evolving. The fire revolution. Then came another major breakthrough. Fire. Before cooking, eating raw meat was difficult. Chewing required effort. Digestion demanded energy. Some risks remained. Cooking changed the equation completely. Food became softer, safer, easier to digest. Nutrients became more accessible. Meals required less chewing. More calories became available. Imagine tasting cooked meat after a lifetime of eating everything raw. That discovery must have felt revolutionary. The prehistoric equivalent of upgrading from a bicycle to a sports car. Suddenly, dinner became significantly more enjoyable. A relatable human moment. Let's pause for a second. Because despite the millions of years separating us from those ancestors, some things haven't changed. Humans still experiment with food. We still copy what others eat. We still discover new flavors. Think about the first person who tried coffee, or cheese, or spicy peppers, or fermented foods that honestly look slightly suspicious. Someone always has to be first. someone takes the risk. Everyone else benefits from the discovery. Our ancient ancestors were doing exactly the same thing. The scale was different. The stakes were much higher. But the curiosity was remarkably familiar. Was it a single moment? Here's an important detail. There probably wasn't one dramatic moment when humanity suddenly decided, starting today, we eat meat. History rarely works that way. More likely, countless small decisions happened across thousands of generations. Different groups. Different locations. Different circumstances. One group scavenged a carcass. Another group caught a small animal. Another discovered bone marrow. Another learned new hunting techniques. Gradually, these behaviors spread and became part of human life. No grand announcement. No prehistoric committee meeting. No ancient vote. Just millions of tiny survival decisions accumulating over time. What did the first bite feel like? We'll never know exactly. But we can imagine. Perhaps it felt strange. Perhaps exciting. Perhaps disgusting. Perhaps surprisingly satisfying. Maybe the first eater expected immediate regret. Maybe they looked around nervously. Maybe their friends watched with concern. And then, nothing bad happened. The experiment succeeded. One bite became two. Two became many. A dietary revolution quietly began. The bigger lesson. The story of humanity's first meat consumption isn't really about meat. It's about adaptation. Our ancestors survived because they were flexible. They observed. They experimented. They learned. They took calculated risks. When environments changed, they changed too. That ability to adapt became one of humanity's greatest strengths. It helped us survive droughts, ice ages, changing landscapes, new challenges, and eventually allowed humans to spread across nearly every environment on Earth. From deserts to rainforests, from mountains to frozen tundra. All because our ancestors refused to stop learning. Outre. So how did the first humans decide to eat meat? Probably not through a grand discovery. Not through a brilliant invention. And certainly not through a prehistoric cooking show. Instead, it was likely a gradual process driven by hunger, curiosity, observation, and survival. A dead animal here. A cautious bite there. A useful lesson passed from one generation to the next. Small choices repeated over thousands of years. Those choices helped shape human evolution and influenced the path our species would eventually follow. And the next time you sit down for a meal, consider this. Millions of years ago, one curious ancestor looked at a strange new food source and decided to take a chance. That simple decision may have become one of the most important experiments in human history. Because sometimes the smallest bite can change the future of an entire species. Fade out.